Welcome to the Front 7 Podcast, right here on YouTube. I am your host, Money Mike, and today on the Front 7 Podcast, we will be discussing the backlash the Cincinnati Bengals are currently receiving for drafting Joe Mixon, and I will have another video tomorrow discussing the ongoing situation with the Raiders' first-round draft pick, Garen Conley. And it's amazing to me, each year we see in the draft talented players that fall due to character concerns. Now, I thought that maybe the NFL was actually starting to smarten up, and teams were going to be more and more concerned, a little bit more wary about players that have red flags, specifically in the domestic violence, rape, things like that, where we see players get cut instantly if they have any kind of criminal charges, because the team does not want to deal with the bad PR and the bad publicity for having that player on the team even after the incident, so the teams cut a guy to save face. But in the draft this past weekend, we saw the Raiders took Garen Conley in the first round, surprisingly, when everybody thought that he was going to drop to the second or third round. But yet the Raiders decided to surprise the entire NFL and the entire NFL fan base by taking him in the first round with the 24th overall pick. Now, later on in the draft, the Cincinnati Bengals selected running back Joe Mixon, who had a tape come out where he punched a woman in the face. And we go back to Ray Rice, Greg Hardy, and the league has taken such a stance on violence against women, players that abuse women. Yet, here we are with the Cincinnati Bengals taking Joe Mixon in the third round despite that. Now, considering the fact the Cincinnati Bengals have a history of taking on troubled players, to me, this is a Cincinnati Bengals problem that needs to be fixed. A culture change that I believe, even though Marvin Lewis is probably one of the reasons why the Bengals aren't getting as far as they should, but the Bengals are being held back because they continue to go for these low character guys. And even though they may be talented, they've had Pac-Man Jones on the team for forever, it seems like, and he had an incident back in January, and yet the Bengals have stuck by him again. Now remember, Pac-Man Jones was suspended at one point by the NFL, and essentially he went and did some wrestling during that time. They have Vontaze Burfict, who basically is a penalty machine. He's another low character guy. Talented linebacker, but very, very low character. And the Bengals constantly draft these guys. And to me, it's amazing, I think, to the point that the Bengals continue to have no problem whatsoever with their image. If it's going to help them on the football field, then damn it, character concern right out the window. When other teams in the NFL are concerned, we saw Reuben Foster drop in the draft. Caleb Brantley, he went to the Cleveland Browns. He had an issue come up before the draft that caused him to fall, and yet he was still drafted. And now the Cincinnati Bengals, now I don't know if they've done this before or not, but it's very interesting to me. A Cincinnati TV station is urging, and that's the word that Pro Football Talk used in the title of the article, they're urging Cincinnati Bengals fans to boycott Bengals games. Cincinnati local TV station WCPO, an ABC affiliate, said this: "We are urging every Bengals fan to take drastic action," an online editorial explains. Instead of buying a Bengals ticket this year, take the $50 or more you would have spent on that ticket and donate the money to a non-profit that works to prevent violence against women. Enough is enough, Bengals. We can't excuse another season without winning a playoff game. We can't excuse drafting a player like Joe Mixon. So, now let me just get this straight here. The Bengals have a history of having low-character guys on their team, but yet Joe Mixon is the one person out of all of the Bengals players that have had issues, have been arrested. This is the guy, Joe Mixon, and it took them to 2017 for them to start urging boycotts. Now granted, look, I get the severity of the situation, violence against women, so I can understand why they're urging or calling for a boycott. Now, but out of all the players the Bengals have had that have had issues off the field, you're telling me it took this long for you to say, hey, Bengals fans, do not spend your money because the Bengals have so-and-so, this guy was arrested, don't spend your money. But yet Joe Mixon is the guy that makes this TV station, WCPO, telling fans, hey, boycott, don't go to the Bengals game. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't live in Cincinnati. But if I can go to a football game for $50, damn, that must be one hell of a damn discount that they have in Cincinnati. Because I know for a fact it costs way more than $50 to go to a football game. But anyway, back to this editorial here that's on the WCPL website. The link for this is in the description below so you can read the editorial yourself. It's very interesting, I should say, because, you know, it's calling for a boycott it's calling for the fans to boycott the Bengals. Now, I'm not going to read the whole entire thing, but I will read a little bit of it here. It starts off, this time the Bengals have gone too far. Over and over, the Bengals have drafted sons still by players with troubled legal backgrounds or other concerns that make them less than stellar role models. But the Bengals drafted Oklahoma running back Joe Mixon on top of the team's tactics support of Adam Jones is disgraceful. Mixon punched a woman in 2014, shattering 4 bones in her face. He entered a plea that allowed him to maintain his innocence while admitting that the prosecution had enough evidence to convict him. Maybe that was a one-time mistake, right? I mean, you know, mistakes happen, right? Let's go back to last fall. He was suspended for a game by Oklahoma after a dispute with a parking attendant. Don't put that, you know what, in my face, Mixon told the parking attendant, according to an incident report. He then ripped the citation in half and threw it at the parking attendant, hitting the attendant in the face. He got into his vehicle and inched at the officer with the vehicle in drive to intimidate the officer. Wow, what a role model, man. Now, the video of him punching the woman did surface on the internet. And much like Ray Rice, he got the backlash that he deserved and basically was probably almost deemed undraftable. So, much like Ray Rice and Greg Hardy, you know, and this is the thing that really boggles me here, is here we are at the Bengals, they draft Joe Mixon, he's put his hands on a woman, let alone punched her, broke a couple bones in her face. He's drafted, while Ray Rice, who has done nothing since that incident, and has been trying to get back into the league, but yet cannot get signed by any team, even though he's a stand-up guy, even after that incident. Because, you know, it was a one-time mistake. You know, Ray Rice has bettered himself since that incident, but yet no team wants to take a chance on him. While we have somebody like Joe Mixon who is getting drafted still, despite doing the same thing that Ray Rice did. How is that freaking possible? The NFL should step in and fine the Cincinnati Bengals and should suspend Joe Mixon for the entire freaking season because apparently the Bengals aren't going to do the job for them, for the NFL. Hell, I mean, if you want to really go that far, Oklahoma coach Bob Stoops even admitted that suspending Mixon for an entire season was not enough punishment. What's it going to take to get it through the Bengals' mind? You stop drafting these low character guys. You might actually win some freaking games. You might win a playoff game. But no, you keep drafting these low character guys. And essentially, I agree with WCPO. I think urging a boycott, to get a boycott going, to not get fans to go to the games, I generally agree with. I think there needs to be a backlash here against the Bengals. And I think certainly, maybe the NFL should step in and say, you know what? Look, Joe Mixon is suspended for a whole season, or he's suspended for 8 games, whatever the case may be. But he needs to be punished more. I mean, he was rewarded for hitting a woman by being drafted. And the article goes on, and this is the part I really agree with here. A man hitting a woman is not okay. Drafting Mixon says the Bengals think it is. And I 100% agree. I think the Bengals stand for violence against women. I think the Bengals organization says, you know what, we support a man hitting a woman in any way possible and putting his hands on a woman, because essentially the Bengals are saying that's what the Bengals are saying. We support players that will get arrested, commit crimes, and hit a woman, yet we will let them play on our field and we will give them a uniform to suit up. While the other 31 teams say, you know what, we will take a stand, we will not support a guy like this, but yet here we are, the Bengals still do. So I know some of you guys are saying out there probably, okay, the Bengals can't control what a player does when he's not at the facility, right? And Joe Mixon doesn't have a contract yet, and it was in college. But here's the thing: the Bengals can't control the player and what the player does outside of the organization. But what they can do is control the type of players that they draft, sign, whatever. So they control all of that, and by signing these guys year in, year out, they constantly continue to say that off the field issues do not matter. Hey, come to us, we have no problems with you. Come play for us, because the only thing we care about is our football team. If you can help us win on the field, then who cares if you hit a woman? If you can get us enough points each week to outscore the other opponent, we will take you in a heartbeat. Let me read on here a little bit more about this article that I'm on WCPO.com. Apparently, Mike Brown, Marvin Lewis, and the Bengals management think winning is all that matters. Apparently, those franchise leaders don't care about potentially alienating the team's female fans. It's time we as fans try to teach this team a lesson. We say try because at this point we have to wonder if the leaders of this team will ever get it. Maybe the only way is through the Bengals pocketbook. We are urging every Bengals fan to take drastic action. The Bengals are getting hit with a lot of backlash for drafting Joe Mixon. Now, I've said my opinion. I've read you the pieces to that article on WCPO.com. And again, the link is in the description below if you want to read the full editorial. WCPO, again, they have another article posted that quotes Joe Mixon, saying it's not about winning anyone over. Now, this article was posted on the 29th of April. When Joe Mixon faced the media Saturday at Paul Brown Stadium, the questions were all about what happened in 2014 when Mixon punched a woman in the face. He knew he'd have to answer for the incident, and that won't be the last time. It's going to be there regardless, Mixon said. I'm trying to do what I can to move forward. Unfortunately, it's going to be with me the rest of my life. I've got to learn to deal with it. I try to do whatever I can to move forward. And while I completely understand, I get it. It's about getting a second chance to prove yourself. But here's the thing. At some point, when does the NFL essentially say, you know what, listen, if you've committed a crime or you've done domestic violence, whatever the case may be, say, you know what, look, you are ineligible for the draft. I mean, to me, the NFL needs to send a message to these players that are still in college and say, listen, look, if you have a red flag if you've done something off the field, terms like something like this, like domestic violence, you are not eligible in the draft, and you must go through the supplemental draft, or you have to wait until the draft is over and sign as a free agent. Be it whatever the case may be, I think the NFL needs to start sending a message. We're seeing it too much with players that come up every year with red flags. They seemingly do not seem to learn, no matter what. I spoke of Vontaze Burfict earlier. Every team passed on him in the draft, and he went undrafted, and the Bengals took him. They signed him out as an undrafted free agent, knowing his character issues. They still stood by Adam Jones, even apologizing for him, trying to save face instead of, cutting him like they should have done. They tried to save face by apologizing. At what point do you say enough is enough? You keep drafting low character guys. At one point, when does the NFL say enough is enough? These players should be ineligible for the draft. And under certain circumstances, they can go back and play another year if they wish. Otherwise, they would have to be forced to be ineligible to be drafted and sign as undrafted free agents. Something has to be done. Something has to be done. And I think even I think the NFL should crack down on teams that are signing these guys off the streets, or even drafting them if you want to keep them draft eligible. But the NFL has to say, you know what, look, if you sign so-and-so, we know of his issues, be aware of the consequences that's going to come along with it, and then, we're not going to support your decision to sign him or play him, whatever the case may be, and that you will be fined for it. Whatever. For the Bengals to consistently, year in, year out, take guys with off-the-field issues and seemingly have no problems, year in, year out, we see 31 other teams that say, no, we won't take this guy, we'll take him off our draft boards. Now, yes, I know, Dalvin Cook had issues too, and the Vikings traded up for him. To me, the Vikings aren't the team that has a history of signing these low-character guys with off-the-field issues like the Bengals do. The Bengals consistently, year in, year out, sign players undrafted. They draft them with character issues. And, I think the editorial in WCPL, I think they're right. I think the Bengals are never going to learn. They're just not going to learn. And I think we're going to have to deal with it. And we've seen it where, it hasn't helped them get to a Super Bowl. It hasn't helped them win a playoff game. So maybe the Bengals should change their approach and start signing high-character guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Did the Bengals make a huge mistake in signing Joe Mixon? Should Joe Mixon be in jail? I saw one comment on Twitter said, he should be in jail, not playing for the NFL. Do the Bengals deserve the backlash that they are getting for drafting Joe Mixon? Is the Cincinnati TV station right in calling for a boycott of the Cincinnati Bengals and telling fans not to go to the stadium, do not buy tickets? Even though I'd still like to know how a ticket is $50, but I guess it's cheap there in Cincinnati. Should the NFL step in and penalize teams, penalize players? Do you think maybe the NFL should make troubled players ineligible to be drafted? Comment below. I've been your host, Money Mike. I'll be back tomorrow as I will discuss another off-the-field issue. Player Garen Conley, who may or may not have conned the Oakland Raiders into drafting him with a 24th overall pick. I've been your host, Money Mike. This has been the Front 7 Podcast. I'll see you tomorrow.